Welcome back to Bread and Butter, everybody. We're serving up the basics for Hearthstone improvement in episode 81, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Tito. Tito, how are you doing today?
Wow, 81. We are inching closer to that big triple digit. I'm doing fantastic, Doc. How are you?
I'm doing pretty okay. And we have a very special returning guest, Corbett. Corbett, how are you?
Hey, I'm ready for a holiday. You guys know any good destinations?
I believe it's called the island. Oh, what's it? The Spiral Islands? Is that what they're calling it?
Oh, see, the lore that actually genuinely does go over my head. So I guess I was really asking. I never pay attention really to the big theme and dig into it. But I think I get the idea. We're going on a holiday somewhere, and things might be going badly.
Well, I mean, it depends. Do you like peril? Do you not like peril? Some people are thrill seekers. I mean, maybe a little peril is what you're looking for.
Absolutely, yeah. If you ever want to do the New Zealand holiday, the river rafting and the bungee jumping, all that kind of stuff, maybe this is your kind of trip.
It does sound kind of fun.
I mean, well, we have a saying in America called "Hold my beer."
It's translated, trust me, across the ocean. I've heard of this.
Oh, go ahead, Doc.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you what you've been doing in Hearthstone, Corbett.
Yeah, honestly, not that much. Like, I think it usually gets to around this point where you're a month or two out of the expansion. And for me, everything's just kind of slowed. For me as well, like, I've also taken some time away from streaming since March. So, like, I've only done the one stream in about 4 months. So it's been really sort of a big change for me the last few months in terms of how I'm, communicating with people around the game, how I'm engaging with the game. And honestly, it's been a lot more healthy. So, not always thinking about cards and not always playing Hearthstone and taking some time off. And it's been good. But I did a Cruzy Legend Wild Climb a few days ago. And kind of getting all primed for the expansion drop. And then my engagement can become perfectly unhealthy as soon as I get all the new cards again.
I'm confused. Not thinking about Hearthstone. What? I don't understand.
It's been a big lifestyle change. Absolutely, yeah.
And it's been a change. Not only have you kind of taken, and I'm glad you said that because I'm like, I don't think I've seen Corb stream in a while. Have I missed it? But like, it's also you haven't been. You kind of have stepped away from podcasting as well. Have you? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So around I can't remember exactly when. Maybe February. The State of Wild podcast that I was doing with Meowth and Ruffle, we indefinitely stopped doing that show as well. It was kind of something we'd been talking about behind the scenes for, several months in advance. Meowth was kind of wrapping up a lot of very heavy real life stuff. It was his final part of his PhD, and I was also sort of wanting to take a break from streaming in general. I think Ruffle will continue to do the content stuff, was also kind of looking to do other things and explore other games as well. And he's had a lot of fun, I think, with the card game. I think it's called like Balatro or Bolotro. Is the one with the actual, like 1, 2, 3, Ace, King, like all that stuff. And he's been having a good time with that, I think. So I think it was kind of just a good time for us to have a little bit of a break. And for me, everything's just kind of been taking a step back. And we'll just see how it goes maybe in the next few months and next year. Definitely not going to quit playing Hearthstone, not quitting. But just kind of more of a normal fan rather than a content creator.
And if I'm correct, I believe I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you'll be streaming on Wednesday in 2 days, right? Well, today we're recording on Monday night.
Yeah, I will be. So I'm really looking forward to that, and that'll be a really nice way to say, hello again to my, viewers and stuff and people that I do genuinely miss interacting with. So I'm really looking forward to that and kind of diving right into the expansion along with everyone else. So yeah, it's really exciting. And, congrats to you, Tito, as well. So you're given the invite and we also joining in the theory crafting stuff.
Yes. So I was invited to theory crafting for the first time, and I cannot tell you how amazingly excited I am. That'll be this Wednesday. I will have this episode out tomorrow. So it'll be this episode will come out on Tuesday. The theory craft will be on Wednesday. It is exciting. It is. I'm sure for some folks like yourself, Corb, I think you've probably done it several times now. It's a little bit of old hat, but I'm sure you were super excited the first time you got to do it.
Oh yeah, the first time it wasn't old hat at all. It was a very ridiculous hat to be given that kind of invite, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I remember just how exciting it was. Like, it was really, really cool.
Yeah, Hat reached out and said, "Hey, you want a theory craft?" Yeah. Was that a rhetorical question? Do you know what rhetorical means? But yeah, no, it's very exciting. And so, Doc, you're going to be joining me on
Yep.
Wednesday, and we're going to be doing a little joint theory crafting. We're going to be giving away a bundle. I'm also giving away a bundle on Twitter, so we're very excited about that. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Well, we've already talked about it, but we'll talk about more in a little bit. So, but we're doing the giveaway, and I know we're doing like the whole thing where, you know, you post a thing on Twitter, you say, hey, follow me here, follow me there, and I know a lot of it is not like, you're not getting necessarily a whole lot of people that are going to be consuming your content outside of trying to win the bundle, and that's fine, but it builds up your numbers, and maybe you pick up a few people, and that's how you grow. So it's just an amazing opportunity. But so, Doc, what have you been doing inside of Hearthstone?
Yeah, so I've been playing a lot of Battlegrounds. I had a very, very pleasing non-dragon game where I had Daimo Tainer Bran, and then I went Death Rattle Beasts. So I ended up selling my Bran. I sold my buddy. I just had like a nut board. I had the Bluebird. I had the Death Rattle Bird. I just made everything have giant butts, and I just nothing on my board could die. It was very fun to get to do Death Rattle Beasts for the first time, because I've just been like a dragon main and then trying to play elementals and pirates. And come the next expansion, I'm going to be playing ladder again and trying to see how I can do with playing ladder again after not playing ladder for quite a long time. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to kind of like going along that journey with you and maybe taking some of the things that we have learned on this show over the last 80 episodes and applying to it. So that's going to be a lot of fun. By the way, before I go on to what I've been doing at Hearthstone, did you know that they made a change to duos?
Yes, I saw that.
So normally when you play duos, you swap who's attacking first every turn, and that kind of gets it can be a bummer if like your comp would match well against the first comp, but then the second comp, and you know, if it's static, you're always going to see the same things. Now there's a chance every turn that you won't switch. So that way, if your team attacks first, then the other team attacks second. I mean, if your team attacks first, your buddy attacks second, and then the next time it could either swap or stay the same. So you might get that opportunity, and you'll see it when it happens. Like when you're planning for your next turn, you will see which order of attacks is coming, and I believe you will never attack first 3 times in a row. It might have been 2 or 3 times in a row, but so there's some limits on that. But I think that's very exciting. Pilot and I still play that a few times a week after stream, and we had a nice win with Cho'Gall last night. So yeah, I mean, it's good times. But I know everyone says this is the time of year where they're tired of cards, and that's just not me for the most part. In fact, as much as I'm excited about the theory craft, I'm excited about the new set, but I also dread the new set because it's not about anything about Perils in Paradise, but I have spent the last 3 or 4 months working really hard to improve my rank and getting to know the meta, and like this time I was struggling a little bit last week when I think we talked, and I was kind of around D5, and I was supposed to have Draco Cat on to do some co-op, play some Demon Hunter, bring him back into just have a little fun with Draco Cat there, catch him up on what Demon Hunter's been doing. And he had an emergency, so he couldn't come. So I just, said, well, I'll just stream. And I went 17-3, and I hit Legend. And it was really nice. It was a lot of fun. And I came in around 1450. I briefly dipped my toe into triple digits. I was around like 975 or something like that for like a minute. And then I've kind of fallen back. But now I'm right around the same place where I came in. I'm right around 1450. I'm loving it. But like, I'm nervous because once we start getting new cards and new decks and I don't know the meta and things aren't settled, I'm afraid that I'm just going to find something I really like that's not going to be as good as it needs to be, and I'm just going to tank my rank. And, it is what it is, but I'm going to try not to do that. So I got to figure out how to combine the two things of having fun with the new decks and being good And I think that comes with just playing and doing more. So it'll be interesting to see how things go. But hey, Corb, what have you been doing outside of the game? Since I know you haven't been playing the game all that much. You must be busy.
Yeah, I mean, in real life, I've recently just started a diploma, so a little back to school for me, which, I haven't really done any schooling stuff since I graduated uni in late 2018. So yeah, it'd been a little bit of a change, but kind of going through that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of pivoting, real life career stuff, which coincides with, taking a step back from streaming and everything. And really looking forward to everything there. Apart from that, that's what I've been doing, sort of, study side of things. But sport has been like a really big thing for me, continue to go along with the local footy season. So a lot of hours dedicated there. But yeah, that's kind of been what I've been doing hobby-wise and, just general time-wise outside Hearthstone.
All right, I got 2 questions for you. One, if it's not too personal, what are you studying now?
So I'll be doing a Diploma of Community Services. So basically the idea to get into anything, in terms of child protection services or anything to do with like family intervention. So that is kind of like the end goal once I'm kind of finishing up here.
Oh, heck yeah.
Awesome.
So if you're on Reddit saying nasty things in Australia, he's watching you, making sure you're not being mean to your families. And the second question I have is, we're coming up on the Olympics. How much do Australians care about the Olympics? Is it like a big deal? Or is it not a big deal?
Yeah, we really care. Yeah, Australia's got a huge sporting culture, and we always do like really well for our population. Like there's always like that, middle to population ratio type thing. But yeah, Australians love sport, like sporting stuff in general is like incredibly important to us culturally. So, we might not be beating the USA in the Olympic gold medal basketball game. I don't really foresee that happening. But look, we give it a real good crack in swimming and a whole bunch of other events. So yeah, I'll be definitely keeping an eye on all that. And I know a lot of people here are really excited as well.
What's your favorite summer event?
Ooh, I'm just like a generally big track and field fan. A lot of like mostly the running side of things, pretty much all distances I really like watching. And yeah, I'm a huge basketball fan as well. So like any Olympic basketball is just awesome. I love watching that.
So I know I can't remember his name. I know he's not Australian, but have you heard about I think he's like 14 to like 16 years old, the American teenager that's on the Olympic 4x4 team?
I have not heard about this. No, I've been a little tuned in with track and like the US qualification stuff, but I did not hear about this story. So that's crazy.
Yeah, in high school, he set, and I think he's a freshman. So he's like 14 or 15, but he set like a national record as like a 14 or 15 year old.
That's, good luck to the Aussies.
So Doc, what have you been doing outside of the game of Hearthstone?
So last week or the week before, we got a new cat, and as people who have had a cat for a while and then got one a while after, there's a transition period and like introductory period where if you do things how people tell you you're supposed to do them, you kind of like have the cats meet with a barrier in between them, and like you slowly introduce them. And so it's been a process. The cats don't fight. Just our cat that we've had for a long time, Brother, he is a very crotchety old man, and our new cat is like 1 year old. So the new cat Olive wants to play with the old guy, but the old guy doesn't want to play, so he gets upset when she tries to play with him. But today they were like right next to each other on the couch, just sniffing each other, doing fine. Yesterday they slept on the couch like a foot and a half apart from each other. So like there's definitely like good progress being made with like them starting to get along or tolerating each other, which is really nice. And as usual, I've been playing a lot of Commander with friends online and some friends in real life. And I had a new deck come in today, which is fun. It's just big butt stuff. And then I got upgrades for another deck that I've had for a while. But yeah, it's a light what Doc's been doing outside of Hearthstone time this time. How about yourself, Tito?
I've just been doing the summer thing with the kid. I'm still looking for a job. I actually get a interview tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. Not quite my job, but once you've been unemployed for a little while, just your job isn't enough. I'm trying to go into companies where it's like, well, they have what I want to do, but they also have more accessibility in things that I don't do. But if I can get in the company and do things that I don't do, then maybe I can have some mobility to do the things I want to do. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, I've been bringing my local Y has a outdoor pool. They just refurbished, and we're not Y members anymore. But if you're a local, you can use the pool during certain hours. So I've been bringing him quite often, actually, just because it's get him out, get him some swimming, try to get him kind of used to the water and get some exercise, and that's been a lot of fun. Outside of that, it's just been kind of day-to-day normal stuff. But I don't think people really want to hear about that right now. You know what I think want people hear about? I think people want to hear about Perils in Paradise. So there are a few classes we haven't touched on yet, and we're not going to do the same thing we were doing last week because it's not time for that. So what I wanted to do this week is I wanted to kind of touch on the classes and maybe kind of some of the directions that we'll go with these new classes. Now, this has been, I don't know about you guys. Have you guys had a harder time wrapping your heads around the expansion this time around because of the tourist mechanic? Because having the ability to, you usually think about a class and it's like, yeah, I can do X, I can do Y. But now it's like, I can do X and I can do Y. And wait, what does this class that it's tourist into do again? Okay, how am I going to work? It's just like information overload. Where are you guys' heads at with this, Corb?
Yeah, I haven't had too much of a problem with kind of keeping up with that kind of stuff because I have been looking at it day to day. But I imagine if you haven't seen some theory crafts from other people, I've definitely seen some other deck lists and that sort of helped crystallize a lot of what the classes have been trying to do. But yeah, I mean, whenever you get sort of cross-class comparison, whenever you get things that are, quite similar to dual class cards, you do kind of open up these range of possibilities. So it's been interesting, but I think at this point I've kind of gotten my head around the majority of it. But yeah, it is a complicated thing for sure.
How about yourself, Doc? Have you done any look at the theory crafting?
Not a whole lot, just because I like things to be new and exciting, and then if I find a deck on ladder or whatever, try to figure out what the list was and then look it up once the day comes out. But I try not to look at lists too heavily. I do think of ideas. I think Taunt Druid could be fun. That's something that I've been interested in since I've been seeing some of the cards come out. It's also with Tourist, right? Because with how they've done previous dual class cards, if I could be misremembering, but it almost seems like they'd be dual class with each other. So now it's dual class asymmetrically, and so that is just a different wrench to work through.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's stuff I wish Druid has that I wish could go in Warrior, and stuff like that. But I'm excited. There's just a lot of new stuff and a lot of new ways to do things, and I think Rogue's going to have some pretty fun and degenerate stuff to do. Also, Rogue with the possibility of stealing another class's tourist, which, I mean, albeit small, but those will be the Trollden highlights, right? Rogue gets some other tourist that is perfect for the scenario, which will happen, and I'm excited to see some of the tourist highlights that'll come out soon.
I'm actually kind of disappointed. So I like that. Well, one, I think it would have been really cool and stupid to balance, but it would have been kind of cool if you could have chained tourists. Hey, I see a rogue card that I really want to work with this druid card. How many tourists do I need to have in my deck? 7? Fine, let's do it. And then just have this massive chain of tourists to get from one to another. I think that could have been interesting and fun because that deck, even if that combo works once in a while, that deck would have been horrible. But I kind of wish that you could still use the tourist from the other classes, even if you weren't going to tourist have the opportunity to get the cards from the next class. You know what I mean? For example, with warrior tourist into druid, and the druid Taurus goes into mage. Now I get you can't go from warrior to mage, but I still want to play the druid Taurus in my warrior deck because the druid Taurus is a 5-mana 5/5 Mista Vista, which is it's a mage Taurus obviously, but battle cry. In 3 turns, replay every spell you've cast between now and then. How, like, I get that you're not allowed to do it because of how it works, but God, I want to be able to play my sandwich again. You know, like you make a sandwich with the rye cleaver, and then you play Mista Vista, and you get it again. It's like, why can't I do that? Like, I kind of wish they just had that cap on, like, yeah, you can have the Taurus, you just can't use it to get the 3rd class or 4th class. Although I think that would have been fun too.
It'd be a twist format for tourists or legal everywhere.
Well, it'll be interesting too. Like, we have not got an answer in Arena yet whether Taurus will be a legendary you can pick or not, but it does sound. Well, it doesn't sound like in the next season of Arena is dual class. So I'm assuming that might mean that you can Taurus, but maybe not, or maybe that'll be something they add later on to as they figure it out. But I don't know. It's one of those things where it's just like the Taurus in a lot of cases has that ability that you just want to take advantage of, and it's just like, oh, it's just like, and that's one of the things that's made it hard for me to think about, because you're like, oh, hey, like I was thinking like, oh, I get to do all these things in Warrior with this double spell thing, or in 3 turns get the spell again. I'm like, I can't. So that's kind of where I've had a little bit of struggle, but we're starting. And the other thing too is, during the whole process of the reveal season, I'd see a card and I'd be like, "Oh, hey, we're gonna get Naga Shaman or whatever it was." And it's like, no, we're not getting Sharpshooter and not Shaman because it's only the cards that are now. So it was kind of like one of those things where it's like, oh, no, I kept getting excited about a concept in my head. I'm like, oh, we can combine these things. It's like, no, you really can't. But, all right, so I broke these up into each class, and I listed kind of just a couple of the archetypes that exist in that class, a couple of the new archetypes that might emerge, and then the new archetypes from the class that we're Taurusing in. So, for example, I'll start here. I have Warrior Taurusing into Druid. So the existing warriors are really Highlander control, right? Control being kind of like the Odin type stuff. But so Odin control, maybe a little different, but for the most part, they kind of overlap. And then the new warrior, we have Menagerie, because you have a lot of cards that are like you have, what do we have? Warrior. We have draw 3 minions of different types. We have summon a 0/6 entry for your opponent. When it dies, summon a minion from your deck. There's a couple interesting cards there. We have some buff mechanics in there. And then we have like the Taurus, which is like, Corbett, what do you think of the Taurus here? Ham the Hungry, Druid Taurus, at the end of your turn, it's a 6-mana 3/3. Eat a minion from your enemy's deck to gain +2/+2.
I mean, the card by itself, like, I don't think is very good, but, like, there are obviously going to be situations where you eat the Sith or something and you're very, very happy with yourself. But for the most part, no, like, it's not a very good card by itself, but I think the majority of tourists, they don't need to just necessarily be the best cards, it's because they're going to see play because they have the word tourist on them. And, that's the Genin Baku part. That's the part that's the superpower on these card decks. So I think Ham the Hungry is a fine one because it's going to make people who want to play like Control Warrior and Ramp Warriors happy because they get another form of disruption. And if you're playing a kind of like greedier deck, then yeah, you probably want as much disruption that you can feel like you can easily put into the deck. And this is like a fun excuse to do that.
Is this better or worse than Dirty Rat?
Worse? I think, yeah, I'll say worse.
Fair. It's still going to be tilting, right? It's still going to be that point where like, you feel really good. It's going to tilt people. Oh, you got my card again. Of course, it is what it is. So, but what are your thoughts on the Warrior class? Like, what decks are you envisioning with what we have between Warrior and Druid here?
Yeah, so Warrior and Druid, because they're the last ones, I haven't really seen very much of them or like seen ideas tossed around too much. But I mean, the big thing that comes to mind is sort of obviously continuing to push Highlander. There's a lot of like really nice druid cards that can fit into that Highlander archetype, specifically, New Heights with the ramp, or even Trail Mix. So, like, being able to accelerate towards your Reno, towards your Bran, is some really powerful stuff. And, Warrior is already so good at kind of abusing Ziliax with the boom legendary, the resurrecting boom, and now that they may have access to, resurrect your 3 highest taunt minions, like a lot of the Ziliaxes, whether you copy them or you resurrect them, they kind of like re-put minions back in your res pool. And so it's like an easy way to kind of fuel those requirements. And so I think that Warrior looks like it's going to have very, very strong late game. And kind of be quite dominant there, the way it has been for most of the expansion so far. If you want to play like a greedy deck, it's really hard to beat Druid or Warrior, and it kind of seems like those two decks are going to dominate that greed matchup again.
And all you can eat is not legendary. So, how many Kiliaxes is that in a game? Oh my goodness. I was kind of hoping when they nerfed Kiliaxes last time around. I would have liked it if they would have either removed Reborn from it and put it on like a different module, or even better, taken off the Divine Shield. Because then at least with that you can kill it, and it would still kind of almost make it better in some instances where you could run into something, it would die, and then you could run into something else. But I just Dr. Boom plus this plus all you can eat, I think control. Oh, I don't. No. And then you have like a Draconic Delicacy there, which is the 8 mana 6/6 Rush Elusive, can only take 1 damage at a time. You combine that with like say Char, which is deal 7 damage to a minion, give that minion in your hand stats equal to the successive damage. If you don't have like some sort of direct removal, and your removal is damage based, that's going to be a real pain in your butt. Oof. What do you think about the Right Cleaver?
Oh, it's so cool. Like, it's so funny. I love that they've made this card. Like, I love it when cards are just like full of flavor. Not to lean too much into the the sandwich puns and imagery. But yeah, no, I think it's a really, really cool card. And like, people are probably sleeping on it as well. This is a lot of mana cheat tied into one Hearthstone card. So they really want to poo-poo and downplay how powerful something like this can be when you are summoning like multiple 8-drops into play and things like that. Especially because Reno has been pushed to 10. It means that you can make this big swing on 8, and you'll get a turn where you can put all those big bodies to the head where you don't have to worry about the Reno in a mirror or something like that. So yeah, I'm open-minded to the Ride Cleaver being quite strong, even if it is like it is a 7 mana 4 attack weapon, and it is slow, but God, that level of mana cheating, I don't want to close my eyes off to that.
But Warrior already has so much control. Like you have, all your control tools already. You have the forge tools, the bellowing flames, and then you have what are the other one is with your armor that clears everything. But like I can see a Right Cleaver on 7. All you can eat, swing on turn 8, and then turn 9 or whatever, if you have to, just res them all again. My goodness, that's sick and gross. I'm looking forward. What about yourself, Doc?
Yeah, Right Cleaver is a fun card. I mean, we talked about it. We talked about it last week. That card means a lot to this podcast for couple different reasons, but
we should have had the reveal. Weapon. We should have had the reveal. You get a slice of bread in your hand. Come on, Blizzard.
Yeah,
I can't complain.
But yeah, no, it's I agree with Corbin. It's a bunch of mana cheat, and the amount of mana cheat like will vary from game to game. But I just think that's where a lot of the value from it can come from. Yeah.
All right, so Corb, where do you see the synergies with Druid here?
The synergies with Druid is in like the Warrior cards, like what they can really grab from the Druid class.
Yeah, what the Warrior cards can grab from the Druid class, or what the Druid class can enhance about the Warrior, or whatnot. I mean, it seems like there's some synergies there. Mana cheat, not the worst thing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that like ability to ramp into those like big power spikes, whether it's Odin or Bran, like getting those cards out a little bit early with something like Trail Mix or New Heights is a really big deal. so accelerating that part of the late game is huge. And then yeah, the Resurrect three highest cost taunt minions, because of that Ziliax, because it's kind of a really natural fit there. Those seem like the most powerful things, and just kind of like really solidifying Warrior as this really dominant late game class seems to be the best thing that I think we can do with these Druid cards for Warrior.
Yep, no, I agree. I think there's a lot of interesting things, especially with the menagerie stuff and the taunt stuff. I think Taunt Warrior is going to be very interesting, or very frustrating to play against if you're not a big fan. And yeah, the ramp is just gross. We'll get to Druid ramp in a little bit. I don't know why they keep doing this to us. All right, so let's go ahead and look into the next class, which is we have Warlock, and Warlock is Tursing into Death Knight. It looks to me like Warlock has given itself a lot of pain lock support, although different pain lock support, so it's not going to be necessarily as aggroing. And you also have this kind of death rattle synergy, and you have the like party plan of Vona is battle cry if you've taken 8 damage on your turns, which you will summon Oribus. So Corb, what are you thinking about Warlock at this point?
Yeah, Warlock is a tricky one, I think, to kind of wrap the head around. And it's kind of like what you were talking about earlier when it comes to, you know, at the very start of the show, talking about the cards, you were saying, you know, wrapping the head around the tourist mechanic and what's that like. I think, like, some of the Death Knight, Shaman, and Warlock cards have been the ones that I've kind of been like, I don't really know what we're doing here. Like, I think that Warlock already has such a great, you know, base to work from with both Pain Warlock and Insanity Warlock. They are probably they pick up like a couple just like neutral cards or just like random pieces. So Warlock is already like very well positioned like that. In terms of like what you can do with Demon Hunter, with Death Knight cards, I think like just lots of Death Rattly stuff, like leaning into the Eliza Goreblade, like the Ghoul's Knight, like going for these like Horizon's Edge token strategies can fit probably really nicely, especially with things like Nerubian Egg and, you know, Eat the Imp. Like these are definitely decks that want to be tokeny and death rattly and push wide. So I think that's probably like the main direction that you can probably go with when it comes to the tourist cards for Warlock.
Fair enough, and definitely there's some interesting opportunities here with like I don't think we're going to be seeing a whole lot of non-Mimi announced darkness, but like Dark Marrow is pretty interesting. Where after you play a Death Rattle minion, destroy it. That's going to be nice with the minions that summon Oribus. Like you're going to be able to take advantage of that. And there's a lot of like Corpsicle could be interesting in Warlock when you have some of the tokeny things that you can do there, or even just like, you know, the imps you generate from Insanity Warlock cards. I don't know. It's very, there's a lot of potential here. And Horizon's Edge, like you said, it could be interesting. Deal 3 damage, randomly split amongst all enemies after a friendly minion dies. Reopen this. I mean that has potential with some imps, and I don't know. I think it's pretty exciting. Doc, how about yourself? What are you thinking? What are your thoughts on Warlock?
Be perfectly honest, Warlock is one of my least favorite classes to play against. So I'm not super invested in what it has, just because typically it just doesn't fit like how I like to play. So I haven't really paid attention much to the Warlock stuff.
The sound you just heard was Mad at Arms raising the prices on any commander cards he sells to Doc by about 50%. No, I mean, yes, but like, so the interesting thing is, so one thing I like about this time of year is like, not only are you thinking about the new decks, but most of the time you're slotting cards into old decks, right? And I think Warlock is the most diverse class right now. Maybe I'm wrong, but they have Sludge, and when I say diverse class, I don't mean like tier 1 decks. I mean we have right now Warlock has Sludge, Pain, Insanity. Even although that's going away, there'll still be some, like, you know, you can still have some big Warlock things there with Dark Pack and stuff. You have Handlock, you have Mining Warlock. So like if any of these can support any of those classes, I think that's interesting. But it's also good you also want to think about, hey, what else new can come out of this? Sometimes we'll get a little hybrid. I don't know. I think Warlock looks interesting. I think I don't think any of the cards. So my initial thought when I saw the set is like, oh, they're just trying to make Pain better, but it definitely feels like it goes from like these all support kind of a mid-range Pain versus like an aggro Pain like we're seeing now. So I don't know, it could be fun. All right, so let's look at the next class. And this is a class. Shaman has been like the dead. Is Shaman been the deadest class in Whizbang? I think so.
Oh, for
right?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
it has some interesting cards, right? Like Shutter Block. So I had a game yesterday where I was playing Paladin, big surprise, versus a Warrior, and I don't know how this all happened, but I get to a point where I was desperate, and I played Marlin, and I kept the cup card that drew a bunch of cards in your hand, and I played that card, and I got the kobold that changes everything in your hand to a random legendary. So I got that, and I ended up having to play it because I'm trying to survive in this game, and I generated Aviana, and I generated Shutterblock. And I also got the, so I played that and I got a bunch of cards. It was random, but I played Shutterblock into the Druid dinosaur that has elusive. That's like, if you have 10 mana crystals, gain +7/+7. Mm-hmm. So it was like a 20 something with elusive and taunt. it was like, I felt like I was playing Rogue. It was stupid. But Shaman, I honestly thought Shaman was gonna be a lot better than it was coming out of the set with all the buff cards like the Wish Upon a Star or whatever it is, and they'll give your minions +2/+3 and Shatter Block and all that. I thought we were gonna see some really powerful Shaman decks, and it never kind of happened. But people seem to be pretty excited about Shaman set here. So, Corb, what are your thoughts on the Shaman set right now?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, like, obviously about Shaman's weak position, but, you know, whenever there's there's always going to be a weak class, weakest class, but I think, like, it was a pretty good weakest class. Like you were saying, Shaman has some stuff. It's not like the class is in complete disarray, and it's not like it can't just suddenly get a lot better. So, yeah, I think Shaman still has the really strong nature Shaman stuff that it can kind of lean into, and it's interesting whether, Cabaret Headliner, whether that can kind of open up some combos because, you get to discount your conductivity, you get to discount your Jive Insect. So, you can kind of open up some mana there. And, Sigil of Skydiving works super well with that combo as well because you get the 3 tokens and then you just have the 3 targets for the Ragnaros combo. So, yeah, there's things like that. There's a lot of good sort of tempo-y aggro pirate stuff available to the class, where it does have the Murloc Growth in as its own one of the more powerful early game minions in the format. But things like Sigil of Skydiving work really well with Bloodlust, because it's just uninteractive 3 minions that have charge. It's like they have super stealth. You play them and then they just cannot be interacted with. So yeah, there's kind of some interesting stuff going on with Shaman, and they also pick up a lot of give your hero X attack stuff, which plays super well with Horn of the Windlord. So I think Shaman has some cool tools that has both on-board reach and some off-board reach. It has some mana cheat to toy around with. So I think there's a lot of different directions that Shaman can kind of push, even if it is coming into the expansion as one of the weakest, if probably the weakest class, just heading in.
And we're not forgetting the fact that Nature Shaman had to be nerfed multiple times. We understand that, but
sure.
I'm saying towards the end of it. But Razzle-Dazzle is bad, right? That's a trap card. Am I wrong?
Which one? Which one? That's all right. The names are still I still have to get used to the names.
7 mana, 4/4 Battlecry. Summon a random 5 card. Repeat for each spell school you've cast this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be quite good actually. It doesn't take too many minions until you're getting a very, very big bomb. Because it does always summon the 5 cost, without a spell school being played. So it's always the 4/4 and the 5 cost. So, if you ask yourself, how many spell schools do I need to make that a big tempo play? I mean, if you play 2 spell schools, That's 3/5 drops and a 4/4 for 7 mana. That's not that bad, and the card can get a lot better than that. So yeah, I can definitely see that being quite a powerful thing. And much like I was saying about the warrior weapon, the big sort of, elephant in the room for most of this format was Reno Jackson. And then the fact that he's being pushed back to 10 means that, making these big swings on turn 7, 8, 9, they're just a lot more powerful than they were previously, I think.
Yeah, I don't think they would nerf Reno enough either at 10. I still think he's going to be an issue. It's like, and I'm hoping that we don't see a whole lot of Reno on Wednesday during the theory crafting, because that would be just me. I'm not planning on, even if you're planning on playing a Reno deck, don't put Reno in it. Just have fun. But I think I also look at Shaman and I see, like you were saying, like the token stuff. I mean, the deck that I saw towards the end of the expansion really trying to take hold was the nostalgia Shaman, where it's like you try to get some kind of tokens going and you try to rush the board, and then you play Wave of Nostalgia and try to just have more random old legendaries than they have. I mean, I think it was a Jambray deck. But it seems like there's more support for this here with the Demon Hunter cards in here, because you said, you're guaranteed the charges with the Sigil of Skydiving, and there's no way to interact with Sigils yet, huh? I'm sure at some point we'll get that, but I also like the potential for Cliff Dive, which is summon 2 minions from your deck and then give them rush. They go back at the end of your turn, because I believe if you Cliff Dive and then you say do something that evolves them. Like, after a friendly minion dies, summon a random minion that costs 1 more. Like, you got some potential there to really kind of do some weird stuff. That could be fun. Doc, what are your thoughts on Shaman so far?
I wish there was more Murlocs that were slotted into Shaman, because to me, Paladin and Shaman are like the Murloc heavy classes. And whenever I get the most enjoyment out of those classes, when there's a bunch of Murlocs I can play. I do like the idea of like nature or rainbow shaman, just getting to do all the spelly stuff with them. I mean, I'm hopeful. Shaman just has the problem of it's either bad or it's too good, and so I feel like, I mean, they've been getting better at being able to design cards in the middle, but Shaman's just in this weird box of when it's strong, it can be pretty oppressive, but then when it's weak, it's fairly weak. Yeah, like Spell Shaman, I'm excited for.
And I should have mentioned Existing Shaman. I should be reading these. Existing Shaman, you've had Highlander. You've got kind of Evolve a little bit, or Nostalgia Swarm, and you also had Nature. And the new Shaman, like, looks like they're trying to get us to do a little bit of Naga stuff, and there's also kind of like a rainbow package there, especially with Death Knight. We'll talk about that, but Buttons is kind of looking into spell school stuff. So, and Demon Hunter, you really get kind of like the charge aggro packages. I think that's kind of the direction they're going. What are your thoughts, before we move on to Rogue, what are your thoughts on the drinks, Corb?
Yeah, I don't mind them being revisited. They, I mean, they're pretty, like, simple mechanic, aren't they? Like, they're not crazy, but, I kind of liked some of the stuff we were able to do with the bananas and the barrel of monkeys. Opens up anything that has any of the 1-cost ones, let you do some pretty neat stuff, and we'll get to that probably later with Mage, with Concierge. So I think it's kind of nice that they paired those two things in this set. But yeah, like, they're fine cards. Like, I think they're flexible, and I like that kind of flexibility in Hearthstone.
And if you don't like them, you can complain to the manager, like Rogue might. We have the new Rogue cards, which it looks like we're definitely focused mostly around pirates, and we're focused around random BS like Rogue likes to do. Corb, what are your thoughts on their Rogue to start? So before we start, we have the existing Rogue is Mining, Weapon, kind of Miracle. Weapon is really like the by the way, Pocket Train announced his retirement today. He's going to be retiring at the end of the month from playing Hearthstone, or at least playing and streaming Hearthstone. So we'll be sad to see him go, but I'm not going to be sad to see less of that Miracle Rogue that he's got going on with the Weapon. And it looks like I said, we have random rogues and random pirates kind of happening right now, and Warlock it tore us into, and they have a lot of more pain stuff, like we said, and Death Rattle. So Rogue, what do you think? What do you think of Rogue there, Corb?
Yeah, I mean, there's some obvious stuff that we've already kind of seen. The excavate package, I'm sure, will continue to be quite strong. It is kind of funny using the Eudora, changing your hero, and then you play tests, and then if you could like shadow step the test back because it's now not your class, so it replays the shadow step, so you can get infinite tests. Like things like that will be probably fun to toy around with. But yeah, I mean, like Spectral Cutlass, obviously a card that benefits a lot from being able to play cards from another class. So like Spectral Cutlass, loves the tourist mechanic. So that's definitely one to sort of keep in mind, I think. But the other one that sort of caught my eye was Lamplighter, which is the neutral elemental.
Yep.
I think it's a neutral, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it does damage for each turn in a row that you've played an elemental.
Lamplighter is a 3-mana 3/2 battlecry, deal 1 damage improved by each turn you've played an elemental.
Yeah, so that's kind of a fun one for Rogue as well, because the Shadow Step and the Breakdance, and if you Shadow Step it, then it becomes 1 mana, and guess what works well with 1 mana cards? Sonya. So, there might be some Shockspitter type vibes that we could recreate a little bit. So that's definitely something that I think is a high upside, even if it probably isn't going to work. But if it does work, it's going to be nasty.
Then you also got adaptive amalgam there, which is 1 mana 1/2 Death Rattle. Shuffle this into all your deck. It keeps all enchantments, and that's a amalgam. So, I mean, you might see. I didn't really think about that. You might see an elemental kind of pirate kind of thing going on. That's kind of interesting.
Corb, have you theory crafted an elemental rogue list?
I haven't, but I've seen some lists being made from other people. Yes.
I'll have to look harder for that, because that sounds.
I'll send you a link. I'll send you a link right now.
Yeah,
okay,
send us any links decks you think would be fun. We'll gladly take a look at. What do you think about the potential for like it feels like Knick-Knack Shack gives us the potential for maybe even more miracle stuff to happen. That seems. I think that seems like a really strong card.
Yeah, for sure. I do think people are probably overrating it a little bit, because there's actually like a lot less zero cost stuff or like really, really cheap stuff in standard Rogue than you might think, because people are always accustomed to, prep, backstab, shadow step, coin, like all that kind of stuff, but there's really not that much. And so I think Knick-Knack Shack is super awesome if you can like really churn through that draw very easily. But yeah, if you happen to draw like high cost stuff, then it kind of isn't like great. So I'm kind of interested to see what that card does. I think it's like one of those which it's kind of an interesting one where it's like too slow for wild, but the card pool in standard, it feels a little bit too expensive. So it's kind of like this little midpoint where I can definitely see it becoming an incredibly powerful standard card. Just, if the curve can get pushed lower in standard Rogue decks.
And with Metal Detector and O Manager, they both are so Metal Detector is a 3-mana 2/2 weapon. After your hero attacks a minion, get a coin, and O Manager, deal 2 damage, combo, get a coin. That's going to be really nice with Paladin. But that seems like maybe we're trying to also continue along the path of Wishing Well Rogue.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Wishing Well, definitely another one where, that deck is so dependent on coins and the fact that you have like these really great generators. I mean, Metal Detector is a bit tough because it is like 3 mana 2 attack and you have to kill a minion. Like that's not easy a lot of the time, especially if players are trying to play around that. But fortunately for Rogue, Rogue has ways of dealing damage to stuff and kind of chipping away at that life total and sort of like, figuring out the breakpoints. So yeah, for Wishing Well, definitely an awesome couple pickups for sure. But I don't know if Metal Detector will get its way into tons of other decks. It feels a bit specialized.
Fair. Now, I before we move on from Rogue, so what are your thoughts on the? So we have 2 legendaries, obviously each one. This one has Treasure Hunter Eudora, which is 6 mana 4/5 pirate. Go to a side quest to discover an amazing loot. Play 3 cards from other classes to complete it. You can do that with Warlock cards that you just have in your deck, or you can do the normal Rogue stuff. And those treasures are Kazakhstan's treasures. And then you have Maestra, which is Warlock Taurus, Battlecry, discover a hero card from the past. I don't think we can get, I think there are some, I think it's a curated pool, like I don't think we can get the Galakron ones and stuff like that. But these are interesting cards, and it, like, I think as far as all the other classes, I think these both are kind of really out there. So what are your thoughts on these, and what are your thoughts on kind of the rogue going into the Warlock?
Yeah, I mean, like, going into Warlock, as I said, kind of helps the Spectral Cutlass and, like Valorok and Tess and anything like that. So that's kind of like a nice thing, and I think it's why, it is interesting, like, Rogue playing into that sort of, like, thief mechanic, and you see cards like Conniving Conman, replay the last card you've played from another class. So there's kind of, like, some cool stuff there, but yeah, Eudora, I can definitely see it in something like Excavate Rogue. Those treasures should not be underestimated. They are very, very powerful cards. Those are crazy.
Agreed. Do you think Health Drink is good in Rogue? Which is the 3 mana drink, lifesteal, do 3 damage to a minion? Because that right there is, in one card, you could possibly progress Eudora depending on what you're doing, even if like you don't have a full thing. Is that? I always think Rogue needs a little bit of lifesteal, but they also generate it. Is that something that could work?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Cutlass Rogue is probably, like, the big home in particular, because you are trying to, like, just build up that big weapon, and so having a little bit of lifesteal and also working well with the Cutlass is something that could probably work out quite nicely. As for Rogue in general, though, I don't think so, because, like, I think this card is obviously one where you want to be more of the controlling, a lot of, like, very defensive stuff, and I think Rogue tends to just work best when it's more fighting for board with its own tempo and kind of like using cheaper cards to remove the opponent's stuff. So in general, no, but like Spectral is a bit of a weird deck, and so I think it's more for that type of archetype for sure.
Fair enough. And it's going to be, the thing I'm liking about this is like, so you have, we're going to see a lot more non-competitive decks that are just for fun, or people that are trying to make like I see like the things like, hey, you have Cursed Souvenir, which is give a minion +3/+3 and start of your turn, deal 3 damage to your hero. And you got Party Plan of Iona, which is Battlecry. If you take an H damage on your turn, summon Ouroboros. And there's probably ways to do it, even with Rogue, through these Warlock cards. So it's like, well, are we going to see someone try to make like a Party Plan of Iona Ouroboros Rogue or something like that? Like, probably won't be good, but like I think we're going to have an opportunity to see a lot more weirdness in Standard, like almost wild like weirdness in Standard.
I think people love to play greedy rogue decks, and those decks always suck, but people always love to play them and tend to have a lot of fun with it. So, whether it's Mill back in the day or like whatever, I think people just love having those late game rogue decks.
Not just greedy rogue decks. I mean, greedy all decks. Like I still try to make like my thought right now going into Wednesday is there a way I can make Block and Rock and Roll work? Can I play 5 mana, do nothing, and have it be functional? And that, to me, that's like the greediest card out there. But it's people always come up with the weird stuff, and I think that's where like the fun is. And I know people get frustrated when like a meta gets like all I see is control decks, and I can't do the fun things. And like having the fun decks where you can do like the weird stuff, I think we have a lot more opportunity for that. Doc, you have any thoughts on Rogue before we move on?
I'm excited for the new Pirates. I think Pirate Rogue will be fun.
Fair enough. All right, so let's talk about Priest. Priest is going into Hunter, which is making Wicked Good very, very, very sad. But so the old Priest archetypes we had were Highlander, Zarimi, and Overheal. We now have kind of like a Fortune Priest, where you get to see the top cards of your deck, and we also have Pain Priest, which is interesting archetype, and then new Hunter cards. We have a lot of Battle Cry and Parrot cards, and there's some buffing going on. So how you liking Priest there, Corb?
Yeah, I think the Priest set's really cool, and it's when I say Priest set, I do also mean like the Hunter cards in Priest. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of like great stuff you can do. Like obviously the trusty fishing rod. The best card in Priest is a lot of the time Crimson, and just kind of being that draw engine. So having that as a tutor and sort of able to like preload that mana, and maybe like you play the weapon, you don't swing, and then you swing the next turn, pop off. I think that's really cool, but there's a whole bunch of like interesting things with how the priest set is interacting with Hunter. Stuff like Pet Parrot and Sasquatch working really well with like Astral Automaton. Or bird watching working really well with Astral Automaton. So there's some cool stuff there, I think. In addition to the preset itself, where even like Narain, Soothe Fancy, like that's another way to just get more creative by copies of stuff and like get more automatons. And I really like the preset and sort of the direction they're taking it, where they're putting in a lot of these aggressive tools. They're kind of leaning into that. They have the acupuncture and stuff. So I like it. I like priest decks that try to kill people, and I don't like priest decks that don't kill people. So I like this set because it does stuff. It does damage. It does tempo. That makes me excited for priest. I love that whenever the class does that kind of thing.
So one interesting thing that you might be able to do with both priest and hunter, and that parrot, the play the last one cost spell you cast, is there's a neutral called Carrion Grub, which is a 4-mana 5/4 with Battlecry. Get a 1-cost suitcase, pack the top 2 cards of your deck into it. So if you got a parrot and you play that, you can play that again. If you happen to draw a parrot in the suitcase, you can kind of go infinite. So if depending on what the other card you get, you might be able to set this up in a way, especially since can possibly know what your top card is. You can maybe do some wacky things there. Who knows? Yeah, but I think this looks really interesting. I like I don't know how... what are we doing? I mean, we're dealing damage with being aggressive. Are we healing as well? Like, that's the thing with Painlock, is you always get too low, and then you're like, well, if you don't draw my Infernal, I die. If, like, they have any over-the-top damage. But Priest has healing. Do we see some... Can you envision some kind of, like, damage / over heal type deck, or like what are you seeing here?
Yeah, I mean there's a few things. Like, I think I don't want to necessarily say the word, but I can't help it. Like Zarimi, there's a lot of cards that work really well, I think, with Zarimi Priest. Specifically like the fishing rod. Like if you just load up on Dragon 1-drops, then all of a sudden that card is a easy way to trigger the Dragon Quest essentially twice. So that's something that works well. And Catch of the Day is also like a very strong tempo tool for that. So there's that, the Automaton. I can definitely see some overhealing shenanigans going on as well. The parrot, Pet Parrot, repeat the last 1-cost card you played. So whether it is repeating a Crimson or even a Funnel Cake. Like, Funnel Cake could be a really strong interaction here. Like, you can't control where the Funnel Cake goes, but if you've kind of exploded onto the board, then odds are you're probably hitting something that refreshes 2, if not 3 mana. So, yeah, there's kind of some powerful stuff there, I think. And I'll be interested as well to see if there's a purely aggressive deck. Kind of like Zarimi Priest, but instead of dragons, more just the undeads, like the Brain Masseuse and the Sauna Regular and stuff like that can really be hyper aggro. And, like a card like Pip with Acupuncture. Oh, man, that's a lot of damage that could be hit in the face.
Yes, very much. Yeah, oof. And how you feeling about... So I think Vol'jin's pretty interesting. It's like a 3-mana 3/3 Battlecry, choose 2 minions and swap their stats. I think that has a lot of potential for either attacking with something buffed or, basically a mind control where you take control of, you play something that's 1/1 and you take control of whatever they have, give them a 1/1. And then you have the whole, the Nerarian Soothe Fancy, which is give 2 fortunes that are copies of your top card in your deck. So those work like a Mirage, like for the Paladin Highlander card, where it changes. So if, like, as you draw your cards, whatever's your top card, now those things are those top cards, so you get copies of those, whatever. So you have a lot of options there. And you have the Twilight Medium, which is Taunt Battlecry, set the cost of the top card in your deck to 1. So my question is, do you know if I say have a Sensory Deprivation on the top of my deck, and I have my fortunes in hand, and I play Twilight Medium, does my Twilight medium make the top card cost 1, but then my fortunes are also now costing 1? Because that's how I think.
I believe the fortunes will now cost 1.
That's kind of gross.
Oh yeah.
That's really kind of gross.
Yeah, there's some nasty stuff there, especially when you know, if you have like dredge type mechanic or anything that lets you like control a little bit what you've got going on there is kind of nasty. But I mean, I guess if you've got the Narrain out, you can see what the top card is. So then, like, if you get a Reno or something, you can just play the Twilight Medium, then play that, and then it's kind of filthy, isn't it?
Yeah, and maybe we'll see some Algernon tech to make sure that they don't have their top card. I'm kidding, obviously, but you never know. Doc, how you liking Priest?
I think Pain Priest will be fun. I think that kind of fits closer to my style of play. But also I think Fortune, which is essentially like Scry from Magic, I think that'll be a lot of fun too, with just being able to get that extra information of knowing what's on top of your deck. Because in card games, the more information, the better chances you have of doing certain things. So I think Pain is the one I'm the most excited for, and then I guess the second archetype that I'm excited for would be Fortune.
All right. We still have a couple classes left. Corbett, you good on time? I know we're going a little long here.
No, I'm all right. No, I'm okay. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Paladin. So, Paladin turns into Rogue, so that's kind of interesting. But right now, the existing Paladin has quite a decent range of things. You can be Flood, you can be Hand Buff, you can do Mining and Hand Buff, and Flood kind of can overlap, and you have Highlander, which isn't really played that much, but it's still pretty good. Now with Paladin, the new Paladin, we have double spells, we have the Holy Buffs and Sunscreens, and we have a Sea Shanty. I think there's a lot going on here, and I am very excited. What I see right now is potentially... so Sandcastle is obviously the card that, like, I think pulls one of the decks together, and that kind of goes right into a Hand Buff Paladin. But what I'm seeing right now, so Sandcastle is a 5-mana 3/8 with Rush. After it attacks, it turns into a location. And it's kind of like Ramonia. We talked about this last week, I think, or the week before. And the attack, the location then gives attack to a minion based on its attack. So if you've buffed Sandcastle, and Sandcastle is a 10-15 or whatever like that, then you're giving another minion 10 attack. And then it turns back into a minion again, which can rush. So you now have the opportunity to clear things with rushing and buff something. What I want to see right now is, in my brain, I see Sandcastle and a buff Paladin, and I see that pairing very nicely with the South Sea deckhand. And there is a, let me find it here real quick. There is a minion that you can play that gives a friendly pirate Wind Fury. So I see some really, really gross things happening with that. I don't know which minion it is. I'm not going to spend that much time to find it. And then you have all the things with the double spells with Sunsapper Lanessa and all the Sunscreens, which is a +1/+2. So it's a token spell. You can generate those with Volleymauls, which it's a 3-mana 3/2. After you attack, get a 1-cost Sunscreen that gives a minion +1/+2. You have Life-Saving Auras, which gives you Sunscreens +1/+2 for 3 turns. And when you play Sunscrapple Lanessa and you play any cards, it doubles your coins, it doubles the Sunscreens, it doubles the spells from Rogue, which you have cheap spells there. And the best part about this, in my opinion, is you also have Sea Shanty, which is a summon. It's a 10-mana spell that summons 3 5/5 pirates, cost 1 less for each spell you've cast on characters this game, which counts healing yourself, dealing damage to minions, dealing damage to the opponent's face, and every time you cast with Lanessa, those things happen twice. That includes Holy Glow Sticks. You have ways to tutor it with Grillmaster, Battlecry, draw your lowest card, Death Rattle, draw your highest cost card. I'm sorry, but I think there's a lot going on here with Paladin. I'm very excited. Cora, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it looks like we're gonna play some Paladin decks that don't don't necessarily feel like Paladin decks, or that like do things that Paladin typically doesn't have access to. Like you're saying, the big thing that definitely stood out when the Paladin set was the Lanessa coin stuff, and just like how well that works with O Manager and the all that potential OTK damage. So that seems really cool. Like Paladin has a good thing to fall back on with like hand buff as well. Like Paladin's just got a really nice current situation. But yeah, apart from that though, I did find it a little bit tricky to sort of look at what like is new in Paladin. Like there is the Lanessa deck, but I'm not sure what else there is too much beyond that. That doesn't say like Paladin got a bad set or anything. It's just like it's already got a very strong structure in place with hand buff and aggro. That a lot of its cards can kind of slot into there. Like it's not going to shock me when, like life-saving aura goes in an aggro Paladin deck, or like if I don't know, like the location, like Sandcastle goes into a hand buff Paladin deck, stuff like that. So yeah, it's got a good like base right now.
I think Divine Brew, I mean, if you compare it with Sunscrapper or not, give a friendly character Divine Shield. If it already had one, give it +1 attack. You can cast that 3 times, and that's almost like a mini Bloodlust, or a major Bloodlust if you have Lanessa. So I mean, you normally don't want to leave Paladin aboard at all. So I don't know. I'm excited about it. We'll see how that goes. And the rogue cards will be interesting too. So one of the things I really have liked, so Sea Shanty I think is a really interesting card, because not only is it interesting for so this is kind of like the way I think that a lot of these tourist cards are going to work that we haven't really seen or understood yet. Like Sea Shanty works really well in the Sunsapper Lanessa deck, right? Like where you can get it cheap really fast. But Mage Taurus into Rogue. I'm sorry, Mage Taurus into Paladin, right? And it can use Sea Shanty in a completely different way, because you can play Big Mage, and Big Mage can get big spells cheaper and replay them again. So it's like you have the same card, Sea Shanty, which functions to draw these 3/5/5 pirates, but it works completely different in a deck that you would play with Paladin versus a deck that you would play with a Mage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's kind of what, the dream ideal sort of creative, the creative ideal for these cards is for them to be able to work differently in different classes. So you can get something that get a totally fresh experience. It's a tricky thing to do, because like generally cards work the way they work, and it's tough to sort of like create those opportunities. But yeah, like even like that's probably one of the more extreme versions. But I think like Arana as a tourist, like pretending that card, like I know it's a tourist, so you can't actually play it in in multi classes, that you can only play it in the Demon Hunter. But for example, like Arana, the fact that it can work by taking face damage and then work by taking fatigue damage, and you could set up like maybe an OTK with it in the right class. If you could get all the way to fatigue, then play the Arana, then like draw a million cards, versus something like playing it on curve, or playing it like with very cheap things like acupuncture and making it more like an aggro-y burn tool. So like that's probably not the best example, but I know what you mean. Like trying to get these cards that just create very different play experiences across the different classes. Yeah, it's always cool when you kind of get to see that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's got to be really exciting for them when they do it, when they figure it out in like the initial design, right? Where they're like, oh, we could do it this and it'll work differently here and differently there, but it'll have this cool effect. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. It's probably so difficult though to like try and find those sort of niche interactions and stuff. Like, yeah, it's a tough one.
But I think we're going to see more than we expect in this set, that probably even some we haven't noticed yet. That's just
for
sure. Doc, any thoughts on Paladin before we move on to Mage?
Yeah, I mean, double spells I think will be a fun gimmick. Just throw down Alkali Lake and get some double spell shenanigans, and then just Paladin's just in a good spot already. So it'll just be fun to see the new Toys and Paladin. I know I enjoy Paladin a lot, and Tito, I know you're not a Paladin main, but I think you'll enjoy the new Paladin stuff.
It might be okay. I think we can nerf some of the cards we nerfed last expansion too, but that's okay. That's neither here nor there. So Corbett, you were talking about Mage. What do you thoughts on Mage? You sounded very excited about Mage.
Yeah, I think Mage is a really cool set. The Paladin getting like the 1-mana drinks kind of opens up so much with Concierge, because you get to play the Concierge, which is the card that, your cards that are from another class cost 1 less. That works really well when your cards cost 1, because now they cost 0, and you can cast infinite number of 0 mana cards. And this sort of like the way that works in terms of, being able to pair with another Paladin card, Living Ace, which is, after this minion gains attack, reduce the cost of the highest cost card in your hand by 1. There's ways to kind of like pair those together, like on turn 5, and all of a sudden start discounting a Sif very, very quickly. I also just happen, not even like just the idea of like Sif Mage or like using these kinds of things. I think there's even like some fun stuff with Big Spell Mage, which you hinted at before, and sort of the way these cards can interact. So, for example, in Big Spell Mage, you could play the Grill Master, which draws your lowest cost card, Battle Cry, and then Death Rattle draws your highest cost card. You could play that on 4. The opponent plays something else, and then on turn 5, you play your Surfer Pod, which says the next spell you draw is cast when drawn. Just trade in your Grill Master, draw the highest cost spell, and then it just instantly casts. So there's kind of like some cool things like that in this set. I really like the way these two interact for the Mage class.
I'm very excited. Do you think there are some cards, like I said, I always talk about Black Rock and Roll because I want that card to work, and it did kind of briefly for like a week. But do you think Millhouse can find a home here, or is it still is Millhouse just never gonna make it work?
I think it's difficult for me to mentally get around the idea of Millhouse being good. Like, I think that mental block is up. He's been walled in. Millhouse is in prison. And if he wants to escape and wreak havoc around the prison yard, he's going to have to prove it to me. Otherwise, I don't believe it.
But there are some good cards here in Mage. Like, Tsunami, I think Tsunami is going to be slept on. I think that is a very, very good card. And especially when you can, like, get that into your... what is it? The 10 mana spell that plays all your spells in order from each spell rank. The orb there from last expansion.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a lot going on here. I'm very excited about Mage. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And you have support for Spell Mage. You have support for almost like a Sif Mage. You have support for a Big Mage. I think Mage is going to come back in a big way. Actually,
there's definitely a lot of cool stuff going on here. Even just like having access to like cheap holy spells is kind of a big deal for some of the rainbow cards in Mage.
Do you think you mentioned Concierge? Do you think that's going to be in every deck, or is that going to be like our Miracle Salesman? Is that going to be like a card in every Taurus deck?
No, I don't think so. I think it's more of a Mage specialty, and it's kind of what I said because
fair.
Cross-class cards are the 1 mana things. Like, I think anything that has 1 mana across class would use it, but that's really just Mage, like stealing the Paladin stuff.
Not Rogue?
I don't think so. No, I'd be surprised by that. But, I'm happy to be wrong.
No, fair enough. And the card I was talking about before, which was Sailboat Captain, which is a 3-mana 2/4 pirate. Battlecry, give a friendly pirate Wind Fury. That's going to go really nice into your South Sea deck hands. Doc, any thoughts on Mage before we move into Hunter? I'm trying to move a little quicker since we're going a little longer.
Big Spell Mage, 100%. That's going to be what I'm going to try to play the most is Big Spell Mage. I've always liked that archetype in Mage, so seeing them get a bunch of support this expansion has made me pretty happy.
All right, we got 4 classes left. Let's kind of move through them. Hunter, Corb, how you liking the Hunter class? I know we talked about it a little bit. Parrots, lots of Battlecry repeats. Seems interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of the best Hunter stuff, I think, fits naturally into Reno Hunter, which feels a little bit dirty to say. Like I don't love the idea of that, but I just think like Sasquatch and Marin is a really cool combo, where you could either like repeat the the zero cost cards, or you could repeat the drawing if you draw into it. So like that's kind of really cool. I think it kind of fits in really nicely and into that archetype for sure. But yeah, I don't know. There's some aggro stuff. You can build an amalgam deck. You could build an aggro deck, and maybe that is where Concierge can fit in. Concierge could maybe fit into like an aggro hunter deck as well, with Cup of Muscle, because again, like 1 cost drink is a great fit. So maybe that's it. But yeah, Hunter's Hunter. Like you'll be going face, and you'll be going face whether you're playing Rito or whether you're playing 1-drops. You'll still be going face.
And I think Chatty Macaw is a 3-mana 3/3 battlecry. Repeat the last spell you cast at an enemy, at a random enemy if possible. I think that specifically says enemy because they didn't want us doing the 8-mana spell that resurrects all your minions again, or your beasts, or whatever it is. I forget the name of it. What's it? You know the one I'm talking about, Corb? The one that's you play it, you get all your King Crushes back, and you go face.
I forgot the name as well. Whoops, sorry.
No, it's good. But like, I think that's why Chatty Macaw says target enemies.
Oh, Stranglethorn Heart.
Stranglethorn Heart.
That's
yeah,
the one, right?
What about Ranger Gilly? Warrior Taurus. At the end of your turn, get a 2/3 Croc. Death Rattle. Give all your minions in your hand plus 2/3. I've seen people kind of like make fun of that card a little bit. Is that card any good? I mean, aside from obviously, yes, Warrior Taurus. We're gonna do warrior things, but just on its own, is it like a good card? Or is it a bad card?
I think people are probably underrating it too hard in standard. Like, it's not amazing, but I mean, it's a lot of stats, and like getting the Croc kind of seems like a joke. But those are 2-mana 4/6s because they get the buff. So yeah, I actually don't hate it. Again, like in that Reno deck where some of these cards just happen to fit in. Like I think it's not too bad actually.
And you're also buffing your entire hand, right? So, I mean, it's just like an extra thing that's being buffed.
Yeah.
I don't know. Doc, how you liking Hunter?
I'm excited to do the new bird stuff.
But you like birds.
Yep. I mean, Hunter's one of my favorite classes. I'll jam as many games as I can with it, no matter what, even if it's bad. So, I'm just excited to play Hunter a bunch.
Corb, you seeing anything good with the Warrior Taurus thing here?
Hunter using the Warrior cards. I mean, Cup of Muscles, like the big one, just because of that Concierge. Like, I think that's such a broken combo whenever you get the chance to do that. So maybe that's really good. But apart from that, I don't know. It's one of the least. It's one of the classes and class like interactions that doesn't scream off the page to me compared to most of the other ones.
So you're not seeing Rye Cleaver into the 7/7s that deal 7 damage plus maybe some eggs. Breakfast Hunter.
Oh well, I am now.
Cleaver.
I am now. Yeah.
Fair enough. So we'll have Breakfast Hunter, but we'll have some rye bread to go along with it. I like it. How we feeling about Druid? Druid makes me sad because there's so much ramp, and ramp always makes me sad because it always makes Druid do stupid things that make it so you can't do fun things in other classes. Comments? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, Druid's never been a problem when it can ramp and play stuff for 0, so I don't know why you're super scared, Tito. I think it'll be fine.
At least their legendary isn't good. Captain Cruise Captain Lorna, 7-mana 4/5 battlecry, summon 2 random locations. I don't think that's going to be very good, but they have a lot of gross things going on here. Corby, are you a druid? Are you a druid lover? Does this stuff make you happy?
I'll dabble in the bigger ramp druid, but yeah, like it depends. It depends. Not like it's kind of one of those things where it depends on what the ramp druid is. If it's just like a real grind out, then not so much. If it's kind of like got something a bit flashier, like I liked Kazakhstan druid, so you know, like when you ramped up to that kind of stuff. So it depends, but Oh man, Druid got a good set, didn't they? Those are some good Hearthstone cards between New Heights and Trail Mix. Like, holy like compared to some of what the other classes got, it really feels like Druid kind of got like a level up, like an expansion ahead, maybe in terms of power level.
And this feels like, correct me if I'm wrong, but this feels like a set that's really going to affect Wild as well.
Potentially, like Trail Mixes, in wild games where mana is such a, just like crucial resource and you're just trying to do the most broken thing as fast as you can. Trail Mixes, a pretty interesting preload tool. I'm sure like New Heights as well will be very good in Reno Druid, for example. Usually you have to play Guff before you get over that mana threshold, but with New Heights you can get up to 13 and then you can start doing your like Aviana, Astalor combos and stuff without having to worry about like a big mana refresh or anything. So a good set of cards for probably both formats, which is a bit scary for both formats.
And plus think, you can so I think what we're going to see is we're going to see people try to get as much mana as possible. So New Heights is 3 mana, increase your mana maximum mana by 3 and gain an empty mana crystal. So combine that with, say, something like, is it Eclipse that doubles the spell you cast? And then
Solar Eclipse. Yep.
Solar Eclipse, and then play Mista Vista, which is in 3 turns, replay every spell you've cast between now and then. Add Guff to that. We're going to see some druids with like 50 mana or more. Not that's going to be a good deck, not that's going to be, but we're going to see some people like their entire game plan is see how much mana they can gain before they kill you. And they have the tools now. Forget audio amplifier. We see a little bit more Beetle Druid because it's going to be easier to get there. I don't know. All right. What are your thoughts about it? Kind of going into Mage though. Do we have good tools in Mage that's going to help out Druid?
Yeah, this isn't what I've too much looked at, but I guess the spell damage thing is sort of a big one. And again, because it has 1 mana drinks, hey, guess what? Concierge. So, again, I kind of forgot about this one when bringing up Concierge before. But yeah,
I think we're gonna see it everywhere. Plus, don't forget that if you have the Mage location of Tide Pools, you might be able to get more Horizons.
Oh, true. Yep. So yeah, I think that OTKs would go with the flow and Sea Breeze Chalice, and along with the spell damage support the Druid has got previously, is an interesting thought. Rising Waves is also just like a not too flashy card, but whenever Druid gets AoE, you're kind of reminded why Druid doesn't get AoE. Like when you have the ability to ramp up and then clear the board, it's always a scary prospect. Like I think Scale of Onyxia is sort of like the big one where people are like, oh, I don't really love that Druid gets to do this. And that kind of was a very powerful card in the archetype for as long as it was in Standard.
Oh, I'm not a big fan of the 4 swipes they get between playing 2 swipes and 2 Gifts of Malfeasance. Like that is not fun in my opinion.
And the location with spell damage means that you get to kind of be a bit cute with the breakpoints with Rising Waves. So like you can press it or not press it depending on what the board looks like, and it means that like if the opponent only has stuff that's between 4 and 6 health, you press it and it's a full clear, and like 4, 5, 6, all of a sudden like that whole thing gets wiped. Or if they have like a whole bunch of things that are just like 5, 5, and like whatever, then you don't have to press it, and you can kind of like get a couple of cute little breakpoint things as well, which is something to note with that card, I think.
Oh, I honestly think Rising Waves is a very slept on card, especially if like we see any kind of like there's potential for some Divine Shield Paladin going on. I mean, hey, let's pop those Divine Shield and then wipe things out. I mean, that's really nice. There's a lot of opportunity there. All right, so we mentioned Mage. What are your thoughts on Demon Hunter there, Corb? We're almost done. Everybody, I
really like Demon Hunter. I like it's so weird. I like the Demon Hunter set because of the priest cards. Like it's definitely one of those where like I don't love the Demon Hunter cards very much, but man, I like Sauna Regular, I like Brain Masseuse, I like Acupuncture. I'm very excited to play Aggro Demon Hunter, where I'm just playing half the preset. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of charge here, which is scary. I think Dangerous Cliffside is a pretty interesting location, which is a 4 mana, 3 durability. Summon 2 1/1 pirates with charge after your hero attacks. Reopen this. I mean, can we play this with maybe going down swinging? Gives you a couple. I guess that really wouldn't work that well, but you have some opportunities.
No, not really. Yeah, because you don't get to like pause in between.
Yeah, you get at least one more attack out of it. But yeah, no, you could definitely. I know you could use it all because you could attack. No, you're right. We would need like multi-strike. But there's a lot of good cards here. Paraglide is going to be tilting probably for some people, but it's not as bad as Glide used to be. What do you think about Patches the Pilot? Battlecry, shuffle 6 parachutes into your deck that summon 1/1 pirates with charge when drawn. That's a strong 1/1. No thoughts?
Oh, sorry. You must have just cut out then for a second for me. I only heard the last section. Sorry.
Oh, I was saying, what are your thoughts on Patches the Pirate? Patches the Pilot.
Oh, Patches the Pilot. Probably weaker than you'd like. I don't know. Is this card getting good reviews? Like, I don't know. I don't think it's very good.
I don't think people understand. I don't think people know yet.
People don't know which part.
Whether it's going to be good or not, because it's a 1 mana 1/1 that gives you 6 1/1s with charge. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that feels pretty good with Sigil of the draw 3 cards or whatnot at the beginning of your turn. And
yeah, like I don't think it's great because it doesn't scale very well, and it's like, okay, it's like how many pirates am I really drawing by like turn 5 or 6 that I play as on 1? It's probably only like 1 or 2. Which is okay, but yeah, I don't know. I think it is a tricky one to evaluate, because like it is one of those ones where you kind of need to see how many pirates you're getting, and also how Patches feels if you're not playing it on turn 1. What happens if you draw it on turn 4 or turn 5? And like most 1-drops are bad on turn 4 or 5, but it's kind of like the big part of why a card like Miracle Salesman's so good, is because that card scales really well into the late game. Like it's still a 1-drop that can effectively draw you a card. So yeah, like how 1-drops perform in the mid and late game is relevant, and I think people sometimes hyper focus a little bit too much on exactly how good the 1-drop is on turn 1.
That's fair. Doc, you excited about Demon Hunter?
Not a whole lot. It's one of my least played classes. It's just not my style of play usually. So it's not a class that I generally look forward to playing.
I think one card that's interesting is Cliff Dive. Do you think Cliff Dive is going to be any good? Corb, 6 mana, summon 2 minions from your deck and give them rush. They go back at the end of your turn. So basically, you get some potentially maybe like a big demon type of option there. Get out a green rag early, hit him in the face, clear something, put it back in the.
The green rag is tempting. I don't think so though. I just don't think there's enough support around it. I mean, maybe Big Demon Hunter attempt 312 will finally work out. Yeah, it is always funny seeing the token Big Demon Hunter card in every expansion. It's kind of like a fun thing to just check off your bingo list.
I mean, to be fair, Big Demon Hunter was good for about a month, 3 weeks, something like that. About a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I liked it.
Yep.
It's been a while. All right, so our final class we have, and I said we're almost done here, is Death Knight. And Death Knight has a lot of Death Rattle synergy. It has Death Rattle synergy, and it has the hooks and the shaman. What are you thinking about Death Knight here?
Rainbow stuff. Like I don't know. Death Knight was so hard for me to sort of like really see the vision when I sort of looked at this. I mean, I'm sure it'll just be Rainbow, and also there'll be some sort of token deck because Eliza and Ghoul's Knight and that kind of stuff. But yeah, the Shaman Death Knight sort of tourist mechanic is probably the other one where I was kind of just a bit. It's difficult to see the clear vision of where things were headed. I think
That's fair. Corpsicle seems like a pretty good card. Deal 3 damage, spend 3 corpses to return this to your hand at the end of your turn. I mean, a good corpse spender goes right into that probably goes right into a rainbow. What are your thoughts about the fact that they've kind of gotten away from like the triple runes and they've kind of homogenized Demon Hunter to be mostly rainbow outside of having the 3 different archetypes. Are you think that's a better way to go, or do you think that's kind of
it feels like it was maybe just a bit of an inevitability from how they set set Death Knight up. I can't be the only one that always gets Demon Hunter and Death Knight.
No.
Right?
I always call Death Knight Demon Hunter and Demon Hunter Death Knight. You are not the only one at all.
Yeah, so like I think the devs were quite open about that the way Death Knight played out didn't go the way they expected, which was basically code for, we knew we were starting off with triple runes, but we were hoping that we would make like rainbows or cross rune decks, and it just did not happen in that first year. And they've clearly moved on to the second phase where they've kind of like pushing these rainbows and sort of like dropping the rune requirements. I mean, I don't think it speaks positively to the rune system. I'll tell you that much. Like there's nothing about the rune system so far that we've seen which made me go, oh, I get it. Like, I get why this is such a huge positive thing for deck building. It kind of just makes me wonder, like, what are we really getting out of this? And, why are things still not working out in terms of creating, like, a very diverse class from the runes? Because, like, Death Knight does have, like, different decks. It does have Rainbow and Plague, and it has sort of expanded. But is that because of the rune system, or is that because you just put every Plague card in a deck, and then you put in, all the Rainbow cards that are Rainbow? Like, I don't know. It is kind of... I don't think it bodes well for the rune system moving forward. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if they ever get rid of it, or they just kind of like ignore it, the fact that it exists eventually. Now, one thing to do remember is if you are playing Warlock and you are bringing Death Knight cards, you are still adherent to the rune system. So if you play Slippery Slope, which is the only double rune card here, which is Double Frost, then you cannot play both a Unholy and Blood card in your deck. So just something to reminder. But yeah, no, I feel yeah, I'm the same way. I think there's something here. I just don't really see it. Maybe some kind of aggro-ish kind of Warlock using these. I don't know. It's interesting, but I think Horizon Zed's a pretty good card. Deal 3 damage after you split damage amongst all enemies after a friendly minion dies. Reopen this. I mean, that feels like there's some potential there, but I don't know. I'm not seeing it yet. Is that the last of it? That is the last of it. So before we wrap up, are there any cards that you're particularly excited about, or are there any cards that you particularly think are overrated? Are there any cards of note anyway that you think, Corb? I know that's kind of a vague question, but like, is there anything that you've been thinking about?
No, I am thinking on it. Like the Tide Pool Hunter is the neutral where if you've played 3 spells, you get to discover a copy of them back, like a copy of one of them back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that card isn't necessarily under the radar, and in some ways it may even be overrated. I mean, people might think it goes in every deck, but I think like that card is so strong in the decks where it belongs, and it'll probably help like push some really degenerate stuff in. Like, whatever the best thing is to do from this next set, I would not be shocked in the slightest if like Tide Pool Pupil is a big one in pushing that. And yeah, apart from that, like, I'm trying to just, like, think of anything that I particularly want to flag. Like, I think Sigil of Skydiving is one of the more overrated cards. The Demon Hunter summon 3 pirates with charge. Because it's not really charged. Like I said before, it's like super stealth. Because, like, you are playing them and then they have charge, but, like, if you just played stealth minions, that would be the exact same thing. And having that, like, super stealth is useful and that they can't get AoE'd, but It's like, how useful is it really? So I think like that's one of the more overrated cards. But yeah, I don't know. I really like the Hunter set. I like the preset. Death Knight, Shaman. Not really sure what's going on there. And yeah, I think Tidepool Hunter is really quite nuts as well. So yeah, that's kind of the main ones that stand out.
Are you excited for the set compared to the last set, or how'd you like the last set? Like, where is your excitement level about this particular expansion?
I was really excited for the last set on release, and I played a lot of the game before the first patch, and then once the patches started rolling in, I stopped playing. Once they just kept on sort of making the meta worse, it felt like after every other patch, I was definitely a bit fatigued by that. So once again, I'm excited. I know that they've explicitly said that they're going to have a slower patch cadence, I think. Like, there's going to be slightly more time before that first patch, and so I'm really hopeful I'm really hopeful that the big philosophy lets us kind of hang on to decks and sort of like allow things to be a little more powerful than they have been sort of like willing to accept over the past few expansions. So I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping that we just like pull back the reins a little bit in terms of nerfs and active balancing, and kind of just like let people play some broken stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that that's going to be a good thing. I
agree. I think that there are times when they have to kind of do what they've done. Like, I think
they
nerfed. I think the temporary banning of Whelp, Happy Whelp, whatever it is, in Druid was important, because I was seeing Druid 40% of the games, 40-50% of the games, and that's meta warping. But like, I think like the Wheel of Death, they didn't need to kill that deck. I think that Paladin right off the bat, I don't think they needed to kill it. I think they just needed to make I don't mind nudges, like nudge things, but like you don't want to completely remove all the lethality we have from different things, because I think the game's a lot more interesting when each deck has like a different win condition, and you're not seeing like, it's better when each deck does something different, and it's not always like, hey, look, it's a Yogg at the end. Oh, hey, it's Kiliax at the end. Oh, hey, it's Denathrius or whatever it is. I like when each class does something a little different. It's just not when you see. It is more frustrating when like, hey, all I'm seeing is Control Warrior. Like, obviously, then you want to see something that I don't envy the balance team. It is not an easy job.
No, of course not. It's an incredibly complicated job, and you're managing the expectations and desires of, often conflicting players, like people that want the exact opposite things. And it's like, how do you even manage that? So, no, it's not easy, and you don't know what's going to happen until you release it. You just have to try and make the best guesses that you can, and that's tough. But yeah, it is just tough to create like decks that people almost like emotionally bond to or feel
yes.
really strongly or fondly. Like, it is really tough to create that situation when a deck is getting nerfed after 3 weeks. Like, there have been like broken decks that I think at the time frustrate people but create like lasting impact on people, and that could be something like Razaka's Priest when that was in standard. Like you remember the Raza and the Anduin, and that's like a very iconic thing. And it's tough to sort of create that sort of storyline and emotional attachment in a format when you're just nerfing after 12 days. Like, it is what it is. Like, it's hard for me to get attached to something in standard. And it's why, like, I often just end up back playing Wild, because the Wild decks, they're not going anywhere. For better or worse.
I think what I would like to see is, as they're going, like, let's say they, like, again, so that first patch, they completely gutted Paladin, right? And eventually it came back. We have a handbuff Paladin now, but they destroyed it. And it was for me, it was demoralizing, because I was really enjoying the deck. I knew it needed to be nerfed, but they completely killed it. So I would like to see them, obviously, maybe have a lighter hand on some of those things and try to kind of evaluate where the meta is going to be, but also have the willingness to be like, hey, patch 1, we what do? They got rid of the Divine Shield and Wind Fury on the this card, and they nerfed that card. Shroomskavate, yeah. But yep. So maybe they say, okay, well, I think we were a little too harsh on this, and the meta's evolved, so let's go ahead and make the Devotion Aura to be +2, or like be able to say, okay, we might have nerfed this too hard, and instead of nerfing other things, maybe maybe undo some nerfs, or maybe like modify the nerfs on some cards that they hit early. Because if people really like playing those decks, and yeah, maybe they're too powerful, and maybe we nerfed it too hard, maybe we can find a middle ground and kind of like revisit that. I don't know if that's possible, but like not just kind of like nerf the next thing and nerf the next thing, but maybe kind of like rebalance things that they've already made adjustments to. I don't know. I'd like to see a little bit of that. Because then when you get those emotional attachments and you kind of feel sad that things have gone, it's like, oh, hey, now they're bringing your deck back a little bit, and it gets you excited. But I don't know. I'm very excited for the set. I'm very excited to see what happens. But we've been talking a while, Doc. I'm kind of full, but I think we have room for dessert. What do you think?
Yeah, dessert sounds pretty good. So, Corbett, what is your favorite American food?
Do I have to give an answer in the month in which we're competing at the Olympics? Like, I can't. I thought it meant to be a competition here, guys. I don't know. Like, when I think of an American dessert, like, because I have actually been to America a couple times, and the biggest thing that I just remember when it comes to food is like the service. And I know that's not technically the right answer, but just like the portion sizes and just like, and how often they just come up and refill your drink. And it's probably something that like sounds silly, but like it is kind of crazy how hard the servers work. And again, that isn't necessarily good because they're working for tips, and that's a very complicated issue itself. It's not like I get it, but man, the portion sizes and things that you get from just like waffles or pancakes and bacon, and oh my god, like that's my big lasting memory of just like going through different diners and stuff throughout the US.
Fair.
Yeah. Listeners, please, if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We prefer 5 stars, but give us an honest rating. 5 stars helps with visibility. We just want to have your feedback so we can make this show the show you want it to be, and also the show we want it to be. And if you leave us a review like a week or two ago, we'll read it out on the show. And if you email the show, we'll also read that on the show as well. Corbett, I know you're taking a little bit less time on social media, but where on social media can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitch at Corbett or on Twitter at Corbett Games. I just had to 100% double check, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's my handle. I haven't had to shout it out in like 3 months. So, but yeah, it's Corbett Games on Twitter and Corbett on Twitch.
Tito, how about yourself?
You can find me Tito Santana HS on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube, and you'll want to be there Wednesday when we have Theory Crafting from 6 to 12 p.m. to a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or I believe it is. I'm not even going to think about Pacific Time. You know what time it is. Come hang out. How about yourself, Doc?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and on the Theory Crafting stream with Tito on Twitch at Doc McButt and Tito Santana HS. Yeah, that's it for me. Corbett, do you have anyone you'd like to shout out today?
No shout outs to me. But yeah, looking forward to the Theory Crafting event for sure as well.
Try to go easy on us when you see us, when we play against you, if we pair up against you. I'm just kidding. Just destroy us.
No promises. No promises at all.
Destroy us. It makes for better contact. Doc, beginning shout outs this week.
Yeah, first and foremost, Corbett, thank you so much for coming back on the show again. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and hear things from your perspective, because your level of the game is drastically different than my level of the game. So it's always fun to hear what someone of your caliber has to say. So thank you.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much for the invite. I know we've been kind of looking to make this happen again for a little bit now. And yeah, I really appreciate it and being able to come on the show. So thank you guys both very, very much.
Oh, we appreciate it, and hopefully we get you a little podcast fix every once in a while. We hope to have you on again. I want to thank Hat and Deck Tech. Hat for giving me the invite, and I know Deck Tech has, they both work really, really hard for. They're doing the job of about 6 people, 10 people, just by themselves. So have patience with them. They're doing everything they can, and they work way past the hours they should be, and probably are well underpaid. So, but thank you very much for the opportunity you've given me. I want to shout out Amber Flight Gaming, who has 8 different people in the Theory Crafting this week, and especially Tyler Knife, who is my teammate, who is during his stream Obviously, come watch our stream. But if you're not watching our stream, go watch Ty. He's going to be raising money during the Theory Craft for Super Blind Man's widow. For Misty Rayburn, who has to deal with not only unexpected life things, but just expenses that come along with it, and the change in situation. So if you want to help out, he'll be raising money for that. So looking forward to this. Thanks everybody for listening to us ramble for a couple hours. It was a slightly long bread and butter episode, but it's if you think of it in Clink and Seed hours, we're a little short, so this is good. But anyway, guys, we're toast. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.